Mr. Stelmach and Minister Evans clearly learned nothing from the economic downturn in the 90s and the crippling cuts under Mr. Klein. Albertans trusted Mr. Stelmach to manage their money as he would his own. He has failed profoundly, spending lavishly this past decade and within 1 year facing a $7 billion deficit. This is mismanagement on a colossal scale.
Thank you all for being here. One of the prime messages of this campaign is our concern about the financial mismanagement of the province. Even before we heard today's announcement, we had already written about this in our campaign literature. Today we have heard of a massive deficit for the year due to lack of planning for the future. We are well aware that the commodities market is a fickle one, vulnerable to events far outside of Alberta. The government should plan for a more stable revenue stream. We must save in the good years for the lean ones. Before we start cutting services, we should immediately do a value for money audit. It is important, as Dr. Swan already said, that Albertans do not lose essential services in the rush to defeat the deficit. To talk a little bit about our most important industry, the oil and gas industry. Some of the most knowledgeable people in the oil and gas industry work for Alberta Energy and the ERCB. The government actually has the information required to prepare for the future, but they have mismanaged this information just as they have mismanaged our money. In the last week, I have unfortunately heard from sources who work for Alberta Health Services that there will be a 3% cut across the board at Alberta Health Services. This will most likely be at the front line, where those of us who happen to be ill or have relatives will be most affected. Those of us who worked in health services through the 90s know that we never fully recovered from the cuts then. Albertans do not deserve such cuts in services again. We must get our financial house in order to provide the services that Albertans need and deserve. Not so long ago, the Auditor General told us that even revenues that we deserved were not completely collected. Lost revenues contribute to the current problem. In this dire situation, we need to have much more than a cross-my-fingers strategy to deal with the finances of this province. Thank you very much, and I think we'll go take questions. Healthcare, we've spent many, many millions of dollars on infrastructure and seem to have forgotten that we need staff to actually work in the new wings that are being built in various hospitals. I've spoken to a nurse from the Rocky View who explained to me that there's actually been no increase and possibly a decrease in the number of beds at the Rocky View since the new extension was built. So you may want to have a 5-star hospital room, but it is not very much use having that if you don't have a nurse to look after you in that room. So I think that we have to really look carefully at where the value for money is coming. You don't actually need to be in a 5-star hotel room. You can just fine in a 3-star hotel room as long as you have seriously dedicated staff to look after you. And this government has neglected the people that you need to look after you. The room won't do it by itself.